Welcome to Via Mythesis. I'm the presenter, Stephen Anthony Orzel, and this is going to be the very first video of a massive video series on the ancient philosophy of mathematics. What I plan to do with this video series is go through all the ancient mathematical philosophers and dig deep into their thought, see what they were thinking about, and see why it's so important for us today. I'm going to start by looking at Pythagoras and Plato. Now, Pythagoras lived in the 6th century BC, was born in Ionia, and later moved to southern Italy to found a mystery school known today as the Pythagorean Brotherhood. Because of their secrecy, they were attacked and the school was eventually burned. The teachers of this school scattered and dispersed and eventually created secret lineages. This leads, about 100 years later, to Plato in the 5th century BC in Athens. And we're going to look at the difference between the philosophy of mathematics between these two. Now, what I'm about to describe isn't necessarily what these individuals may have necessarily thought themselves, but it's more the kind of paradigms of viewing philosophy of mathematics through these two names, because it's important when you read the literature to distinguish between the Pythagoreans and the Platonists. So the Pythagoreans focused on things like symbolism, looking at number symbolism, treating numbers as metaphysical entities that have qualitative properties, looking at the one, the monad, as kind of unity and individuality, the dyad, too, as kind of polarity and opposites and difference and things like that. All the way down to the decad, which was 10, which was completion. This number symbolism was summarized in this symbol here, known as the tetractys, which looks like this. It's 10 dots in the form of an equilateral triangle. And the Pythagoreans felt that this symbol encoded a great deal of secrets of the universe. First of all, we can see it encodes the progression from the monad to the dyad to the triad to the tetrad. Add them all up. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. That's the decad. That's the completion. Not only that, but we also see the harmonic ratios that constitute the diatonic musical scale. So you find the ratio between the 1 and the 2 is the octave. Between the 2 and the 3 is the perfect fifth. The 3 and the 4 gives you the perfect fourth. Those three intervals can be used to construct the Pythagorean diatonic scale. So the Pythagoreans also studied things like harmonics in music. You don't necessarily find that too much in Plato. Plato kind of looked down on the arts and poetry. So anyway, the Pythagoreans also looked at what's called the quadrivium, and they built their whole mathematical education off the quadrivium, which I'm going to talk about in greater detail in future videos. But the quadrivium consisted of 4 subjects. Number 1, arithmetic. Number 2, music or harmonics. 3, geometry. 4, astronomy. Now, over with the Platonists, they were more focused on metaphysical questions about mathematics. What is the metaphysical status of a mathematical object, like a circle or a triangle? To describe that problem, let me draw this distinction for you, and that is between being and becoming now they said, this goes back to the Timaeus, Plato's dialogue, the Timaeus, and he begins his discourse by drawing this distinction, saying being is that which always is, never changes, can't be destroyed. Becoming is that which comes into being and passes away at a later time. So in that sense, it's never really real. Being was understood through intellect and reason, and becoming was understood through opinion and sense perception. Now with that said, we look at something like a triangle and then ask the question, what I've drawn up here, is that really a triangle? Well, honestly, if you measure this, these lines aren't perfectly straight. And not only that, these aren't even real lines. A line is supposed to have no thickness. These have thickness. This isn't a real triangle. To make it even more obvious, look at that! It came into being and passed away. How could it be a real triangle if it does this? Becoming can't be real. But there is a real triangle. That's the Platonic form of the triangle, or the idea of the triangle, because it's understood through intellect and reason. So, in a sense, the Platonists were building off the Pythagorean quadrivium with these things here, intellect and reason. Now we're going to go into more detail on this distinction between being and becoming, and that's going to be the next video, where we go into Proclus, who was a Platonist who lived in the 5th century A.D., also in Athens, was known as the successor for his voluminous commentaries on Plato's dialogues. Well, Proclus goes into these three categories. He puts intellect at the top. Second is understanding. And opinion at the bottom. And the way it kind of works is that, well, 1 and 2, these basically match up with being, and 3 matches up with becoming. So Proclus felt that mathematical objects could be best viewed as subsisting at this level, understanding, and not as intellect. That when we do mathematics, we're working at this level of understanding. Certainly not opinion, because of the certainty of the mathematical propositions. Now, mathematics is less than intellect. It's actually below intellect, because Proclus viewed intellect as sort of those eureka moments, those intuitive flashes of insight where in a split second you get an immediate intuitive grasp of some idea. Mathematics doesn't work that way. We have to make definitions, demonstrations with proofs, and building up a kind of logical hierarchy off of previously established theorems. But also, understanding is above opinion for the certainty that it has in the propositions. There's no certainty in opinion. So we're going to go into a lot more detail on Proclus coming up next, and I hope you stay along with us for that.